And then other ways we can see the church is more beautiful than all creation. And we can see this for many different things. First, you might not know this, and we'll get more into this in a different video, but just going from the tradition and from the fathers, not having to dig more deeply into them right now, just citing them, is the church existed before all creation, and all creation exists for her. To combine Revelation and Ephesians, you could say that Jesus' lamb slain before the creation of all worlds for his bride, the church. So creation was made for her. We can see that in The Shepherd of Hermes. If you haven't heard of that, that's a book that a lot of the early churches considered as part of Christian scripture. Well, we know that it's not scripture, but it's still a really, really good book, and it shows the mind of the early Christians. Or we could look at Saint Epiphanius of Salamis. He talks a lot about how the church existed before creation and creation was made for the church. And this isn't any new idea. The Jewish people thought that the whole reason for creation was for the Jewish community, right? We see that an easy place to see that is the Assumption of Moses. And we know that the Assumption of Moses isn't scripture either, but it's so important to see how the Jews were thinking, and the disciples of Jesus even, because Jesus and all his disciples were Jewish, that it's even quoted, the Assumption of Moses is even quoted in scripture in the first chapter of Jude. So this isn't a new idea that the community, the people of God, the community gathered around God, is the church. That's why creation exists. So she's more beautiful. The church is more beautiful than all creation. But when we're thinking about this and we're thinking about, like the community and the church, and okay, those are all like very abstract. Like I can't touch a community, can't see a community, right? Oh, well, I guess that if I got on a hill, I could look down and see it. But they're very, very abstract, and we need to personalize it, right? This is especially important in theology. Pope Benedict, when he was Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, said that it talked about we can't just have this abstractness, we need to personalize it. Because he said, in theology, it is not the person that is reducible to the thing, but the thing to the person. This is very important, a purely structural ecclesiology, so about the church, is bound to degrade the church to a program of action. And if you've listened to Pope Francis a lot, it's like, no, this is very important not to see the church as just an NGO or anything. So we need to have it be personalized. How can we personalize it? Well, one way is the way that Pope Benedict does. When I'm taking that quote from, he's talking about Mary. That's one way, and we're going to discuss that more in another video. Or if you're interested, I'll put this in the show notes, but this super good book, Mary, the Church at the Source, that's the one I'm quoting, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book there. I love it. But there's another way we can personalize it. And let's see what that other way is besides Mary, which is a very important way, but we'll talk more about that in another video. So Claudel, in his book Emmaus, which is a good book, he would say that the entire church is present in each Christian. Or this is even more beautiful. Just as Christ is in every host, the whole church is behind the face of every Christian. Have you ever thought about that? Every Christian, every Catholic, that's the whole church. This whole reality we've been talking about, this beautiful thing that all creation was made for, that's all present behind every single Christian person. But let's make it even more, that's still very, very general, every single Christian person. We see in another theologian, very smart guy, Paul Andreasen, and I really like his last name. But the fathers, he's summing up what the fathers of the church say. The fathers saw a parallel between the creation of the first woman and the birth of the church. Okay, so we're getting more specific here for how we personalize it. And St. Hilary, I love this quote, "The mystery of Adam and Eve is a prophecy with direct bearing on Christ and the church." So where do we see the church? In the first married couple, in Eve specifically. And we bring in that other concept behind every Christian. Well, we see that it's in a person's wife that the church shows forth her aspect of most beautiful. So my wife is, in fact, the most beautiful woman, because the church is, and where I see the church is in my wife. Let's just sum this up with a quote from Scripture here. In Ephesians 5:25, I said we'd come back to it. St. Paul says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church."